I have a chapter in the book about breaking bread, and I think that that ritual of receiving people, and every culture on the planet, completely independently of each other. And I'm talking about Judeo-Christian cultures. I'm talking about Shaolin monks. I'm talking about pygmy cannibals. I'm talking about everybody they have all figured out a way to ritualize the exchange of love, the exchange of regard, the exchange of appreciation that occurs in hospitality. And in their earliest days, and I can say this, I can get a little bit intellectual because I know I'm talking to a really smart group of people. But in its earliest days, they all felt the need to sort of call forth divinity to ratify proper behaviors or socially desirable behaviors or behaviors that would help the community. And what do I mean when I say that? I mean, you exist in a family, you exist in a tribe, you exist in some sort of community that's present, pre-communications, pre-roads, pre-everything. Somebody who's coming from over the horizon is a stranger. They may be like you, they may share most of your values, but you don't know. They may also just want to kill you and take your livestock and your land. So hospitality as a sort of ritualized way to engage was a necessary part of, it was a necessary part of the development of civilization as we know it. People looked to the divine to explain things they couldn't understand. So death, life, love.
Right.
Nature, the weather, basically the weather.
Yeah.
And then the next sort of tier of things that they looked to divinity to explain were behaviors that were necessary for communities to survive. So don't kill, don't steal, and be nice to guests. And over the years, that notion has become what we know today as modern hospitality. It's also actually an incredible way to get things done. And I have a piece in the book about Martha Washington. And she and George Washington, he could have been the king, and he refused it.
Yeah.
They chose to be to do something different, but they also had to get things done. And so they had a wonderful dinner once a week for all the congressional leaders, all the members of the cabinet, and they sat around over 16 courses, 13 courses, unlimited amounts of champagne, whatever was being served, but they talked and they became friends.
Yes.
And that ritualized, safe experience together of breaking bread, whatever the disagreement was about the trade treaty with France, whatever the fight was with Hamilton and the National Bank, it's hard to call somebody a jerk when you know you're going to have dinner with them on Thursday.
Yes.
So the Washingtons used this as a way to positively create, through hospitality, safe spaces for important things to happen. I had, my first job out of college, I worked since I was 13, but my first, in the summers, my first job out of college, I went to the State Department and I worked for Pamela Harriman. And she was, at the time, our ambassador in Paris. And Mrs. Harriman believed and probably actually practiced better than anybody else that hospitality and entertaining could be used to get things done.
Yes.
And that's what she did at that embassy. And when I say, she got things done, I don't mean that she just necessarily brought people together, although she certainly did that. She also used the experience of being taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And really, that's what a good host is doing, right? They're taking care of their guests. During the time that the guest is in their care, they are seeing to all the needs. It's almost like a return to the womb, right?
Yeah.
A good host takes a guest and returns them to the womb. You take care of their nutrients, i.e. their hunger. You take care of you hydrate them.
Mm-hmm.
You make the temperature right.
Mm-hmm.
Make them safe.
Yes.
And she would use that, and in the context of that, get important things done. She had a really incredible system. And I mean, it's hard to even comprehend today. She had 13,000 index cards. And on those cards were the names of every person she'd ever met.
My goodness.
And there was a room at the embassy. It was the card room, and it was locked up, and there were only 3 people who had keys. And every night we would take the cards for every single person who she was going to see the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd lay them out for her, and she would study them. And then the next day, she would, having refreshed herself on her interactions with those people, because that's what the cards documented, she would be ready to make every person who she saw feel like they were the most important person in the room.
Amazing.
So, it could be, there was this marquise who had a fabulous chateau in Normandy and had a granddaughter who was going to Georgetown. And Mrs. Harriman knew this. She would see the cards. And when she would see that marquise at a party, how is little Millie liking Georgetown? You have to go, next time you're there, to this bakery on R Street. It is the only bakery in Georgetown that makes a perfect croissant. And by the way, here's the number for the guy who does my hair, in case you're there and you need to dress up. Well, the woman would be very flattered.
Yes.
We would write that down. 2 months later, the next time she ran into that woman, she would be able to, her memory would have been jogged. And she would say, now, did you go see Alexander for the haircut?
Right.
Did you? And people would just melt. Now, was she doing it to get popular? No, she didn't care about that at that point in her life. The reason she was doing it is because that marquise owned the chateau where Jacques Chirac, the president of France, would stay in Normandy when he went up there for the weekend.
Yeah.
Now, Mrs. Harriman, being the ambassador of the United States, she wanted to know where the president of France was going to be on the weekend. And if he was going to be in Normandy at that woman's house, she would arrange to get herself invited to somebody else's house nearby. Guess what? She would get the opportunity to spend time with the president of France while he was up there on a weekend, a non-working weekend.
Yes.
That made her very effective. And so hospitality today is, it's something that we do to raise money. It's something that we do to sell products. But at its core, it's something that we do to exchange love.
Yes. Bronson, when you're talking about Ambassador Harriman, you also talked about that she was totally capable of protocol, but also was not allergic to breaking protocol if she felt, in terms of placement, it would be more beneficial for everybody, or more just hospitable.
Well, she was dealing with a lot, right? Because she was in Paris, and you've got all the people that an embassy normally sees. businessmen and women and politicians or government leaders. But the really hard thing for her, for us, I guess all of us in the protocol office, was dealing with, you have a lot of ex-royalty in Paris.
Yes.
And they're always the most difficult, right? Because you know how to treat somebody who's a queen, but you don't really know how to treat somebody who got thrown out.
Right.
And so she was always kind of juggling, and I guess that probably happens in any really cosmopolitan city. But she was able also, she had the confidence to be able to break the rules when she wanted to. And I mean, I'll show you another picture here. This was a dinner that, well, there was a dinner we did for Gwyneth Paltrow when she launched her Goop company. But here's a dinner out in East Hampton. Okay, this is a really important, this was somebody's milestone birthday. There was an expectation of some kind of incredible party with all kinds of bells and whistles. And they had the confidence to say, you know what? We want one long table under the trees. And so this is what we made. Now, they had, an incredible headliner after and all kinds of entertainment. But they were willing to sort of break the notion that you have to kind of play all your high cards in every hand. You don't have to win every hand with kings and aces. Sometimes you don't have to play the ace. If a queen will win, hold the ace for later. And so this was an example of a party where we did that. I think the other thing that happens, and is that a party has to unfold. And one of the things I say we, Billy, because Billy was the editor of my book and is as responsible as anyone living, including myself, for the book. So we have a chapter on something called the 20-minute rule. And this is the idea that in 2020, nobody has the attention span to last a whole night without some stimulation, without some changes, without some kind of, you change the place, you change the music, you change the food, and maybe you drop confetti, as you see in this picture. Maybe you bring the band up onto the table. Mm-hmm. Why not? You have a girl come in with a snake. You bring in a pig. Yeah. Or confetti. Fireworks. There are all kinds of things you can do to keep the party going.
Are you talking large scale or small scale? Or
some of those things. I mean, bringing in a barbecue pig is not large scale.
I suppose not. If you're in a large state like Arkansas.
I watched Urban Cowboy last night, by the way.
I see. Listen, let's go back. Wait.
By the way, speaking of books, mm-hmm. I'm reading this book right now, The Splendid and the Vile.
Yes.
It is so good. I love history, mm-hmm. and I was a European history major in college. This is a history of London during the Blitz, and it's told from the point of view of, it's using, the primary sources for it are the diaries of everyone who was living there. So, you see, like Martin Gilbert wrote this incredible biography of Winston Churchill, 12 volumes. It's like the definitive thing. And Andrew Roberts wrote a really important biography of him and of Lord Halifax. But they used diaries of the people who were there writing things down to give a little color or to give a little dash of spice to things. This is basically using the diaries like 60 of them.
Yes.
And letters. So Neville Chamberlain, who was the prime minister before Churchill, of course, he didn't really keep a diary, but he wrote letters to each of his three sisters every single day.
Hmm.
And so you could recreate, it's a great history of the period, and it reads like a novel. So anyway, sorry, you were asking a question and
No, but speaking of diaries reminds me of where they always start in one's youth. How the hell, born to party, forced to work. Now, how did you end up doing what you're doing? You went to college, you worked for Ambassador Harriman, excuse me, and then what happened? How did Bronson start his business?
Well, I went out to LA after Paris because I decided I wanted to fulfill a long-standing need to have strangers want to be my friend. And so I want to be a movie star.
Right.
So I went out to LA to act, which meant that I actually really was a waiter at an Indian restaurant called the Bombay Cafe. And I ended up doing working in set design. And I was an intern at the Paramount lot and in the art department. And on my second week, the set designers all went on strike.
Mm-hmm.
So they were desperate. And I just raised my hand. And when Herb Zimmerman was the production designer for the Star Trek, for all the Star Trek properties. And at the time, there were 3 series on TV. There were movies being made. There was a theme park happening. And he comes tearing in on the first day of the strike. And he says, I need somebody on set stage 33 right now. And I said, I'll do it. And so I started doing sets. I got tired, I think, of the entertainment industry in LA. And I think a big part of the reason I think I got tired of it was, well, I mean, it was not intellectual at all. And not that I'm any great intellectual, but we were sort of, I felt like I was in a one industry town, and my entire value to anybody with whom I engaged depended on where I fit into the hierarchy of this one industry, the film business. And that's not a really validating kind of place to be. I was talking to my mom one weekend, and my mom had several years of cancer, dealing with cancer, which was really bad, and then she recovered. And so she sort of had this new lease on life, and I think wanted to do something. And I was desperate to do something different from what I was doing. And she said, how was your weekend? I said, it was a Sunday. I was terrible. I have all these scripts to read and so bored by it all. And she said, well, what would you have done this weekend if you could have done anything you wanted? And I said, well, I would have had a party. And she said, well, let's go figure out a way to get paid for having parties.
Yeah.
So literally less than a month later, a friend called, Marina Rust, and needed help with her wedding, and really needed help from a friend. I mean, just needed advice. I spent the day with her, and we sort of were trying to figure out all these decisions. Her mother lived in France at the time, giving her advice. And the next morning, she called me at 5:45 in the morning, and she left me a message, and she said, I fired the caterer, the wedding planner, the tent company, everybody. And if you want to do my wedding, I'd love for you to do it. It'd be great. And if you don't, I'm going to have a barbecue and call it a day. So I called my mother. I said, Mom, do you want to plan a wedding with me? And she said, why not? Let's do it. I was living in Los Angeles. My mother was in Arkansas. The wedding was on a little island called Islesboro in Penobscot Bay, Maine. And so we went, and the wedding was in 3.5 weeks. We went to Islesboro, and somehow, I don't know, we pulled it off.
Amazing. And it began your career, and you started working from there. I mean,
we started working from there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bronson, you've talked about the 20-minute rule. What are your thoughts about food at parties?
Oh, well, I think all my thoughts about food at parties have to do with drinks at parties. So my get them drunk. I serve them salty food, always something salty,
Yeah.
early in the night, because people who eat salty food get thirsty.
Yeah.
People who are thirsty drink, and people who are drank flirt, and people who are flirted with feel good.
Yes.
And so there's a progression there. I mean, these are causal relationships, right? So you know, in addition to the fact that when you drink, you actually kind of feel good about yourself, whether you are entitled to or not, as well. So that net increase in everybody sort of feeling good is really important for a party. The other thing that I love to do is take very common, ordinary things and sort of serve them in an interesting way. Here, I mean, these are little coned French fries, again, salty.
Right.
Tiny little miniature one-bite ice cream cones, because nobody wants to eat really a whole ice cream cone at a party. And if you make it this small, it's like kind of like you're losing weight when you eat it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of, I think that's all I have to say about food, because I actually don't think food makes a party. I love good food, but in a party, you can't gild every lily, and nor should you. I think you want to keep people going.
And
that's what food's about.
And with the 20-minute rule, of course, you do keep the plot moving. And what about the design or the interiors, the lighting, the decor of a party?
Well, lighting to me actually is the single most important thing that anyone can do at a party. I mean, forget the flowers, and I love flowers, the furniture, all of it. Lighting is the most important thing. I'll show you. This was a party, and we have a chapter on this at the book, in the book, for Puff Daddy, P. Diddy's 40th birthday party at the Plaza. Now, here's a picture of the room. Am I sharing this? It's sharing, right? Yep. Here's a picture of the room. When we had finished, we'd set up the ballroom. We put down this high gloss, mirrored, shiny jet black dance floor. We had leather Chesterfields and fur blankets on them, and you know, the room's decorated. But here's when we turn the lights on.
Beautiful.
Okay, that's different.
Yeah.
That's a different. I mean, that's a ballroom in a hotel that's got some lounge furniture in it and a good floor. That's a different world. And none of the other stuff was as important as the lighting. This was a crazy night, actually, because he played the music so loud that the plaster started falling.
At the Plaza?
Yeah, the vibrations from the subwoofers made the plaster, the dust started coming from the ceiling, which actually was good for me because...
Why?
Well, he had come by about 10 o'clock. The party was starting at 10. Maybe he came around 9:30 to just kind of check it all out, see how everything was going. And of course, to, you know, find something wrong in what we had done, because he's a total perfectionist, which I admire. But he, you know, he goes through and he can't really find anything. And I was sort of, yes, you know, got through this. The party's going to start. Everything's okay. And then as he's leaving, he turns around and he says, you know, there's one thing that would actually take this party over the top. And I'm thinking, oh, you don't mean the lacquered black crabapple trees or the labyrinth of hedges with pomegranate vine that the guests have to walk through to get in, or the 16 Juilliard dancers who are greeting everybody on Grand Army Plaza when they get out of their car. What? Tell me, what'll take it over the top, Puff? And he says, if it would snow. So here we are. The doors, it's 9:45 on a Saturday night in New York City in October. It's not snowing.
No.
And the party's starting in 15 minutes. And he wants it to snow. We end up finding, so he leaves, and I'm sort of like, what are we going to do? But we end up finding the guy. He was drunk at a bar who had the keys to the tech closet at the Metropolitan Opera.
Amazing.
And so we got him into New York City from Union City, New Jersey, and we got that snow machine.
Amazing.
And we set that snow machine up, and the guests are in the room while we're fiddling with this thing. I mean, we literally had a ladder in a corner of the room while the party's going on, but we were going to get it done. So we got the snow machine set up. He arrived at the party at about 11:30. As soon as he got to the center of the room, we turned on the snow machine, and you know, he was like a kid in a candy store.
Oh, that's
because
great.
it starts snowing. And also he had Al Green, which, you know, makes any party amazing. An old friend. There's Jay-Z, Little Kim. He's there. There he is with his boys. So it was a good night, but it was, you know, there's always something, right?
I would imagine. I can only imagine, I should say. Bronson, what about charity parties?
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing about charity parties, and I'm so nervous to do stuff like this, by the way. This is like my least favorite thing in the world, is to be talking to a group of people, especially people that most of whom I can't see. But I'm doing this because Billy and I created this book, and we want you to read it. So there is a chapter in the book about about entertaining for charities. And you know, the most important thing with any charity, and it's true for the Greenwich Historical Society as it is for a hospital or a food bank, the most important thing is that the money that you raise goes to the organization. It's not about making the party the absolute best in terms of the decoration or this or that or the other, which doesn't mean that it can't be completely top line in terms of the experience of being there, in terms of the warmth and the graciousness. But you want to spend less money so that more money can go to the cause. Yeah. So I'm going to go back to this. I've got some pictures here. Example. Let's see. Okay. So here is a party at Lincoln Center. This is in what is now called the David Koch Theater. It used to be the New York State Theater. We had very little money for this party. It was the opening night of the New York City Ballet, and Sarah Jessica Parker was chairing it, and she had called and sort of said, can you please just do something? And we literally have like $1.85. So we found this novelty guy in Northern California who made these hot air balloons. And we got him to sell us a bunch of hot air balloons for, cost or something. It was very cheap. And we went in that room. Oh, by the way, when you're working at Lincoln Center, it's unions. It's all union labor for stagehands, porters, team. You drive your truck up to Lincoln Center. You have to get out of your own truck, and they have to put a union driver in the truck to drive it up to the loading dock.
Wow! And
you have to pay all those people. So we made these hot air balloons. I can't even remember what they. I think we spent. This was $5,000 total at the end of the day, and we just brought in helium tanks, and we inflated those balloons. The party was starting at 6 o'clock or something. We came in there about 2 p.m. and we unfolded these balloons. We had them in briefcases because we didn't want the union guys to see that we were doing something
right
big. And we had a balloon delivery service come with their tanks, and we filled these things up and we floated them up into the ceiling, and that was the look. So that's using one.
Mhm.
There's only one thing going on there,
Right.
and it's those balloons, and that's what we're trying to do. I think a lot of times when we're working on a charity event. Here is the same room, and this was the opening night for The Tempest, and this was for the American Ballet Theater.
Mhm.
And we made these giant cyclones, and we had these strobe effects to make it feel like lightning was going on.
Mhm.
But these are insulation. I mean,
Right.
who's ever gone to Home Depot and done a do-it-yourself project, in your garage? This
Mhm.
is literally residential insulation material, and it's wrapped around chicken wire.
Amazing.
Here is a party at the Whitney Museum, and we just went to nurseries, and we literally borrowed plants. They weren't even plants that we bought,
Mhm.
and we just wedged them in. Again, chicken wire. My whole business is chicken wire, zip ties, hot glue guns, and staples, literally. But we and a lot of heart.
A lot of heart.
But we went and got those plants and just stuffed them in chicken wire and wrapped the whole room in it. And at the end of the day, of course, we had to pay the workers. The workers are, they're getting whatever their hourly. You can't not pay the workers. But the point was to not spend money and let it go to the museum.
One of your theories is less is more, and that isn't necessarily for fundraising, but you told me a story once about, I think it's in the book, the idea of at a fundraiser to create an experience for the guest that somehow parallels what the water story is, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Can you
Okay.
tell us that story? I think people find that useful going forward, because I think we're going to be needing to do a lot of fundraising if we have.
Well, I think it's really important for every organization to figure out what are the emotional touch points,
Uh-huh.
and what is it that they're doing that actually evokes an emotional response from people. And then once you figure that out, I think an organization needs to figure out what evokes emotion. What's the most efficient way to evoke emotion in human beings? It's through our senses.
Mm-hmm.
So the event that Billy is referencing, which is one I didn't work on. I talk about it in the book. I talk about a lot of parties that I didn't work on in the book, just because they're things that I learned from.
Mm-hmm.
But a charity called Charity Water, which, there are something like 600 million people in the world who have to walk more than 6 miles to get fresh, safe water to drink. Okay? Imagine that. 600 million people, that's twice the population of the United States, is walking 6 miles a day so that they can have water to cook and, drink and everything. So Charity Water tries to fix that, and they put wells in and, all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So when you arrived at that party, you had to pick up 2 jugs of water, and you had to walk 100 feet with them to get into the party. Now, that was heavy. 2 16-gallon jugs of water, that's really heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And to walk 100 feet with it, you see how annoying it is. Mm-hmm. And then when you think that there are 600 million people doing that every day, but they're walking 6 miles,
oh my God,
not 100 feet, you start to really feel the problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's the challenge for every organization now, particularly at a time when, there's a lot of emotion. And I'm seeing a question here. What do I wish our clients would do more of? Any themed parties you're dying to throw, from Catherine. I think I just want people to go for it. I'm not a more is more person. in terms of everything. But I am if you're going to do it, commit and go all in. And every time I've had a party, I just go for it. And so, themed parties I'm dying to throw. I want to go back to Narnia. I want to do a Pharaoh's ball or a Cleopatra ball or something. I don't know. It really depends on the person. Because I think by choosing a theme for your own party, in a way, you're telling people something about yourself. And hopefully it's something very sincere. And it's something you're really interested in. I mean, I had a Homeric ball for my 44th birthday. And I love Greek mythology. I grew up reading, because I was so isolated. I mean, I read comic books and I read mythology. And these were the Greek gods were like my superheroes. So I had a party and it was a Homeric ball. Everyone had to come as characters from Homer. And let me just show you what I'm talking about when I say go all in. Because with a costume party, the all in depends on the guests. So first of all, it's a great way to make a party look amazing without having to actually decorate much, because the guests in a way become the set. But you have to sort of tell them that you're taking it seriously and it's going to be wonderful and fun, so that they then invest in making it in their outfits and actually sort of fulfill their responsibilities. So I'm going to show you a couple of things from that Homeric party. Let's see if I can get this going. Okay, this was the save the date. So this is it was a video save the date, and I'll play it for you. Sound up.
You look 10,000 years younger. I feel it.
People you know, me and 2 of them in high 20 years ago. For the video, the pretty video, you put the battle me to get I love, you know, copy me. Every day so, don't copy me. Y'all do it, stop believe. And y'all can't come close to me.
So, I sent that to everybody and I said, I'm having a real party here. And it's a long ways off. Come if you want to come. But if you come, you better represent.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? They did. And I think that, let's see if I can find the pictures I have of that party.
Listen, Bronson, while you look for the pictures, if anyone has any questions, why don't you send them to the chat now, and we'll go on to the questions after we have a look at these wonderful photographs from Mykonos.
Oh yeah, there was the invitation. So here's what we found in an old factory. It was a dump. I can't even tell you. It was such a disaster. I mean, that's literally what it was when we showed up. But in Greece, they've been in a recession for 20 years. And all the people, I found the credits for the opening ceremony of the Olympics, when they had the Olympics there, now 15, 16 years ago. And I started calling people. Creative people like to work, and creative people like to be creative, and they like to make things beautiful. So I found all these local people who came over to Mykonos with me and helped me take that warehouse and turn it into a Dionysian temple We painted the ceilings, we marbleized them. I mean, this was the funnest thing, and it was like a group kind of art project. And finally, the real participants came, and those were the guests, and they all brought it. And I think it was because they'd been told the expectations were high for them. So I think that it's important that expectations are set for guests, for hosts, and I think it's important that expectations are met. And my job is oftentimes to help hosts meet those expectations. And all of you guys I know on this Zoom have been hosts at various points in your lives. And you've also all been guests. And I'm sure if you're here right now, still listening to me an hour into this, then you're clearly all about meeting and exceeding expectations. I think that the work that the Historical Society does is so important because we are living in a time that is almost outside of history. And we are seeing a situation in America that I don't think we ever thought we would see. There are historical precedents for it, though. There are a lot. And we have to think about those precedents. We might not want to. Some of them are not good. But if we can think about the ones, even the ones that aren't good, we can recognize where we are, and recognizing it, I think, is the first step in starting to make it better and changing it. But we can also recognize and see the things in the past that give us hope. And we should have hope right now. I mean, one of the questions was, how do we see entertaining happening? Guess what? Entertaining is going to happen the way that it's always happened, eventually. Not in the next 18 months. No way. But the human need to entertain, to share and express appreciation and love and warmth is not going away. That's part of our nature. I mean, there are all kinds of things that are part of our nature, some of them good, some of them bad, that we're seeing in our situation today. But that need is not going to go away. And I feel like my job is to help people express and fulfill that need. And so part of that is knowing when people, part of that is reading a room, and part of that is knowing when you've taken up enough of people's time. And I'm looking at the clock, and it's 7:30, and I know that people have to go cook dinner.
Bronson, before you leave, I just want to make sure my dear friend Betsy Ruprecht, who's one of our co-chairs tonight.
Oh my God! Yeah, where is she?
I'm here.
Hey!
Hey!
This is a celebration of you and your book too, Bronson.
By the way, listen, Catherine, the book. Okay, so you can buy the book. Fiden made a special code for Greenwich Historical Society. You get 20% off if you want to get it. It's called, you go to Fiden.com, and it's Spring 20, all caps, SPRING 20, all caps, and you'll get 20% off on the book. So please, if anybody on this is interested in hearing any more from me, you may not be, but the book is there, and you'll have a special discount. Sorry, Catherine.
Yeah.
But I know Betsy wanted to give you a toast, which you're so deserving of. So I just want to make sure that she's able to do that now.
I do. So, I mean, you guys, I'm represented in this book in a birthday party and in my daughter's wedding. And Molly knew Bronson, had gone to Bronson's parties, and said to me when she got engaged, "We have to have Bronson, Mom." And I said, okay. So I met Bronson and Mary and Mimi, his mother, who's on the call too, and sister. And we created, in I think only 6 months, which isn't that long, a wedding in St. Bart's that there's a picture of Molly and Al in the book. And after that, I thought, well, you know, that was an epic, incredible moment. And that will be, I won't see Bronson and Mimi and Mary for a while. And my husband came home and said, well, I have a surprise for you. I want to give you a 60th birthday party. And everything that Bronson's been talking about, I just want to say, I'm not Beyonce and I'm not Gwyneth Paltrow, but they created such an amazing event for me. And we had an elephant in the front yard, and the theme was circus. The invitation's in here and pictures are in here. And it was, Bill and I talk about it now more than ever because, because we're at home and looking at each other. But we really, I have the pictures over there. It was such a memorable event, and Molly's wedding was a memorable event. And Bill and I just want to say, Bronson, it was amazing. You invited me to your birthday party. You invited me to Greece. And, you know, the Van Wicks are part of our family now. And I just want to say to everybody, they create an event with help, because I brought some antiques to St. Bart's and Bill had the circus theme all worked out, right, Bronson? Anyway, it was great. And I just want to raise a toast to you and everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To history,
Yes.
to a safe and healthy present, and to a brighter future. So
Cheers.
You're here.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
And then Bronson, last but not least, I mean, what's a party without favors? In addition to the beautiful boxes that hopefully many of you guys got, we have door prizes, 2 door prizes. Kai, I don't know if you can see Kai on your gallery, is holding up the first one. It's a bag that Kelly Caroon, who's on, designed that says Zoom Warrior. And our winner for that is Valerie Rockefeller.
Bell Rock.
I'm sure you're a Zoom warrior, Valerie, so very fitting. And then we also have a bottle of 21 Seeds tequila that Kai is going to special deliver. And Kate Clark is our winner for that. So hopefully Kate can put that to good use in quarantine.
That was good division. I'm much more t-shirt. She's much more tequila. That was perfectly done.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank all of you guys. Thank you so much.
Guys. Be well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Catherine.